My husband and I were at a very formal dinner party, and I was sitting next to our host, who was a very, very elegant man. He wanted something different, but of course it had to be elegant. Elegant, classical, beautiful. What hasn't been put on a tie? Everything's been put on a tie. But I was interested in the structure of a tie. So I thought, if I go back to basics and redesign the actual tie rather than merely the surface of the tie, I could come up with something quite interesting.
You know, I really don't like the open collar look, so I could really see the need for this and the desirability for this, so I was very on side.
There's a huge history of tying ties with different knots, and there are many variations on that, but I wanted colour contrasting knots.
The smile factor in this was the knot. In fact, the knots. I then thought about the fabric of the tie, because if it had a contrasting knot, there had to be tension between them, both in colour and texture. And I designed a little knot. And then I thought, actually, 2 knots. The knots were the most stimulating thing to design, because should they just be a simple tube? Should they have a fold over? Where should the seams be? And of course they're handmade, so they are perfect. So now we had a tie, which I could then match to my mood by choosing a knot of a contrasting colour.
You can put both of the contrasting knots on your single tie, wear just one, whichever your mood of the day, but you've also got an absolutely beautiful, elegant, traditional woven silk tie. My ties have their seams at the side. There's a very small, elegant tab for the back blade to be tucked into. A young guy doesn't actually even know how to tie a tie often, and all he needs to do is pop a knot on from my type, put it over his head, pull it up, and he's got a very elegant tie, which he didn't have before.
Stephen Walters, silk weavers for 9 generations. It's still a family-run business. Stephen Walters was founded in Spitalfields, where a lot of the silk weavers from Lyon ended up after they were kicked out of France during the pogroms. Stephen Walters uses modern jacquard looms, but the skills in the design department, the skills of the weavers are still very, very important to create special fabrics. When I first sat down with Rosemary Goodenough to discuss this project, she ran through some designs, and immediately we thought of a different way of weaving the fabric. We are using a silk warp, which is a coloured warp, and 2 wool yarns that are there to create the pattern, and this also creates a little bit of matte and a little bit of shine, which is an unusual fabric, a contemporary fabric, but made into a traditional product. We have a silk and wool fabric that is been designed specifically for her. The ties that we're manufacturing for Rosemary Goodenough are made from fabrics woven in England. The ties are produced and manufactured in England by hand using skilled craftsmen, but with a very unique and unusual twist. The ties are a 2-piece tie with a separate knot that is made specifically so that the wearer can interchange the knots and create a little bit of excitement.
And we've been told by the UK Fashion and Textile Association, you, Rosemary, are the first person to redesign a tie for 150 years. You're not leaving this building until you promise that you're going to go home and immediately register the design. And here we are with 3 new fabrics which will be exclusive to Wowcracy, and they're grey, blue and red. And the blue tie will come with a red knot and a grey knot, and the grey tie will come with a blue knot and a red knot. So you've got so much fun. In fact, I think you should buy all 3.
All those moods?
Yes, and the pre-ordering is just an amazing opportunity for anyone actually who chooses to go with this to increase the sartorial elegance of men worldwide.
Well, there's a thought.